Hello and welcome to Down to Art. I'm your host, Christy Gordon, and today I'm super excited to be talking to John Sproul about how to connect with galleries. John is a Utah-based artist, and he has had over 20 solo exhibitions and participated in over 120 group exhibitions internationally, including at the J. Paul Getty Museum. And he also owned and directed Knox Contemporary Art Gallery and is the director of the Art Group. So welcome, John. It's so good to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
Yeah. And we met just a few weeks ago at the Vermont Studio Center.
We
And
did.
while we were there, you mentioned that, I mean, I've noticed you've shown in so many galleries, so you're like obviously really good at connecting with galleries, but also you actually owned a gallery before. So immediately I was like, whoa, we need to like talk about all your, theories about how to connect with galleries.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think like when I was talking to you about it, we had another artist friend with us too, and I think he brought up probably like one of the best points, and I almost want to start there, which is like how to connect with how to make that contact with the gallery and let them know that you're an artist. You say you've been visiting their art shows, and you kind of want to like make that communication and kind of somehow let them know that you're an artist and kind of bridge into the next
Yeah.
stage. What theories do you have around that whole interaction?
Well, I mean, we're talking about mid-process where you've already been supporting the gallery and going to the shows and whatever. And I, I think the attitude to have, at least from my mind, is to come to it with like, what can you do to support the gallery? And then as you have that attitude, you approach them with your work at a certain point. Um, and having respect for the gallerist's time, not coming to the opening and trying to show them your work is a good idea not to do that.
Totally.
Make an appointment. Gallerists are really busy. They're trying to, they're hustling and trying to make a living. And so if you just show up during a regular day, they may give you the time, but they're going to be a little slightly annoyed that you're taking away from their time. So making an appointment to come and see them, maybe suggesting a studio visit. Zoom studio visits are pretty common now since the pandemic came in, and so just reach out and see if they're interested in a studio visit. Maybe that's a good way to start.
These
Um,
are like so cool and so proactive. Like I almost never do this kind of thing actually. So actually, but you mentioned a good point. We've sort of started in the middle. So really
yeah,
what you would say first, and this is such a good point, is that it is so important to like attend their openings, support the gallery. Like what would you say as far as like getting the groundwork laid in that sort of way?
yeah, and just talking to the gallerists and the artists and supporting their artists as much you want to support the gallery. And make sure you like them, that you kind of get along because you don't want to be
Mhm.
in a business relationship with someone you don't like, no matter how much you like the work they represent.
Yeah,
So
that's
that's
true.
important, I think. I think we often operate in a level of scarcity, but that's not reality. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of galleries around, and
Mm,
so find the place that fits for you, both in personality and in the work.
that's so true. Yeah. Yeah, I'm so lucky. I have all good, really good connections with galleries, and I love to say that because like it can be so wonderful when you have that. And I know it's like sometimes people don't have that, and so I think
Yeah,
that's a really good point.
yeah.
Yeah, and so I have all sorts of theories myself about how. So I'll sort of tell the way that I sort of
Please do.
deal with this, and then tell me any additions that you would make to it. But so I like to go into the gallery during business hours, not with a portfolio in hand ever, and never, ever to make a conversation at that moment about like, oh, this is my art. But no, so I go into the gallery, I look at all the art on the walls, and then, maybe I remember the name of one of the artists, say it's a group show or whatever, and sort
Mhm.
of note some technique or whatever that they're using. And then I do try to force myself to talk to the person at the desk, which sometimes is the actual gallery owner, and sometimes it's, someone working for the gallery. but I just try to be like a normal person and be like, oh, I really love what you're showing in the gallery. I love what this artist is doing with textures or whatever. And I just try and strike up a conversation.
Hmm.
Um, and then if I feel bold, which I try to force myself to do, I might even say like, "Oh, I'm like, I really love the work that you guys show. I was just wondering like what you prefer as far as artist submissions go. Do you like to get like a hard packet, a hard copy of a
Hmm.
portfolio sent to you or see digital images instead?" And that way I'm kind of posing a question to them because I used to do it where I would go in and be like, "Oh, I'm an artist," and you just see them freeze. They're like, "Oh
Yeah.
no." But instead
Yeah.
to just give them a question, and then they have to say, "Oh, I prefer an emailed version," or whatever, and it just kind of like segues into that. So that's kind of like how I do it, and then I might send them a card afterwards, like, "Oh, it was such
Hmm.
a pleasure to meet you and talk to you at your gallery. I'm excited to send you some images soon." That kind of thing. But I don't know. I'm just like making this stuff up as I go. Like, what would you tweak about that or add
Well,
to it?
I think that's a good idea. You're not being super confrontational or aggressive, but you're also being clear about what you'd like to send them a portfolio, and you're not bringing it in at that moment and putting pressure on them. And I think that's a good way to go. And then the follow up's nice too because they're super busy and when we're stressed out, our memory doesn't work as well as it does normally. So I think that's all really good. I've noticed myself when I go into galleries, the ones where they're more amicable, this has happened where it just naturally evolves into that because you go in and you're really looking at the work and they notice that and then they start talking to you or you talk to them about it. And
Yeah.
so yeah, it kind of comes into that sort of point where you're just beginning this conversation and I like the point that you take it to very quickly and like, you guys or even asking if they do accept submissions because so many galleries don't anymore. But
I
just
often
putting,
don't ask them that. I just ask because I almost want to creep in through the cracks.
yeah,
They may not
pretend
officially be taking artists, but sometimes they will.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, just, I think that's great, being kind and
totally.
yeah, I think you're doing a good job there.
Thanks. Well, and I
Yeah.
really liked your point about like how important it is to go to openings because I sometimes feel like I just like blend in. But as since you used to own a gallery, like tell us about what it's like when you own a gallery as far as all the faces at your openings and how
Yeah.
likely it is for you to eventually maybe try and piece it together and kind of figure out who's who. Like, how does that work?
Um, I I'll tell you that a number of artists that I showed, um, at least a few, that happened because they kept coming to the openings. And so it makes me want to like, oh, they're very supportive. I want to see how I can support them.
Totally. I've
And
seen that happen too. When I was
yeah,
going to openings, I saw another artist that was often going to the openings at a gallery that I showed with. And then exactly like you say, he eventually like took on this artist. Then it was because he'd been going to all the openings.
yeah, yeah. So and there's a level of professionalism in that and just
Yeah.
decency and generosity. Often
Yeah.
often openings can be seen kind of superficial because it's the worst time to look at the art.
Oh
But
yeah.
but um but it is a really good time to go and socialize and connect with the gallerist and the artist. And even if you don't get a chance to connect with the gallerist,
Yeah.
the artist might be a better way to start because the gallerist will notice that if you're
Yeah.
talking, and if it's crowd or whatever, that's why it's important to go often so
Yeah.
that you have more opportunities to engage. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I would, over time, I would just notice people, and they'd introduce themselves to me, or I would ask them who they were if they'd been coming a while. So,
Yeah.
and a lot of good, not just, partnerships and gallery artist relationships, but also good friendships come out of that. So,
Totally. Yeah, that's
yeah.
totally true. Yeah. Yeah. And I think like as far as like faux pas to watch out for as artists, like I would definitely never do anything in the realm of like for me, I almost don't make any attempt to talk to the gallerist myself. Like
Hmm.
at an opening. But if they were to talk to me, obviously I would. But I almost feel, and tell me if I'm wrong, because again, I'm just like making this stuff up as I go along. But I almost feel like that shows a certain level of professionalism. Like I understand that they've got like a job to do, that night,
Yeah, they're
and it's
trying to
not
sell the
talk to
work.
me.
Yeah, and yeah, you really got to judge the moment.
True.
Galleries, at least the ones I know of, most of their sales go out on outside. So it's like there's a typical gallery stroll where I live, every third Friday they have the openings. And that's where the public comes in.
Yep.
But the galleries actually often make most of their sales not on that day.
Oh,
So yeah,
that's
that's more of
interesting.
a public interface. I'm not
Oh,
sure how it is in New York, but here it's more of a public interface. Like the gallery I work with here, they have a private opening, and then they have the
oh.
public opening, and their sales are mostly from the private
Oh, that's
opening.
a really interesting point that I never like thought of.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, so in some ways they maybe aren't totally like frantically trying to sell art or anything, but you don't want to go
yeah,
up to them with a portfolio. But that's interesting too, like what you mentioned about how yeah, sometimes even when you're visiting a gallery, the gallerist will eventually sort of talk to you and sort of
yeah.
strike up the conversation. I realize for me, because sometimes it's just about receiving when things happen, like with art opportunities. For me, there was a gallery that I was going into all the time. And then one day I was shocked. The girl who works there like came up to me and started talking to me. And
Hmm.
I just almost froze, actually. And I didn't tell her that I was an artist or anything like that. And like I think it's actually sometimes just good to be aware of like the possibilities and so that we can be more like receptive to the moments that might occur.
Yeah,
If it
yeah,
was to
yeah.
happen again, I would like, you know, um I think I was almost hiding that I was an artist. I think I was almost like, oh my God, she's gonna figure out that I'm an artist. And I'm like,
Yeah. I think they often know anyway.
oh
Um,
yeah,
and
true.
one thing we is you need to figure out how it works best for you as an individual.
Yeah,
That being said, if you're a shy person, nothing's going to happen because you're shy and you're not going to do anything. But you have to push
true.
yourself. But how it
Yeah,
works for you in that pushing and challenging way, and there are many
totally.
different ways to do it.
That's really true. And like I don't know if I would even say that I'm a shy person normally, but when I used to go into galleries, I used to just be so freaked out, like, oh my gosh, it's a gallery. Like they're it's like hard to even talk to them. And that's why I would try to just strike up a conversation, like
Hmm.
just kind of force myself to. Like it's just words out of the mouth and just talking about art. And a lot of the time as artists, when we just strike up a conversation, oh, I like the textures that so and so is doing in that painting. Like it's so easy to do, and we have a lot of knowledge about art. So we, sound good and the conversation flows, and it just
Yeah,
makes it more natural to talk to like, these people that we like really want to connect with.
yeah, and it makes it easier when the work in the gallery you're excited about it because you do want to talk about
Totally.
it, and
Yeah,
and they see that. So.
that's totally true. Yeah. And then I know because yeah, you've been in like so many shows, so many like solo exhibitions and tons of two-person shows and
Mhm.
group shows and stuff. And so I was wondering like what some of your strategies or just with all your knowledge, like what you find are some of the best ways to kind of get your art out there and start to make these connections. Like I know you mentioned brochures actually when we were talking
Yeah.
before.
So in regards, I'll touch on the brochures, and then we'll go back to the first part.
Yeah.
So my thinking is galleries are inundated by uh, artists, right, all the time. And so if you send them an email with your images, the possibilities of them seeing it are pretty slim. Or if you send them a CD, it's also the same.
Yeah.
And this is a recommendation I have heard from other people. So sending them a
Mm.
brochure where as long as they pick up their mail, they'll actually see your images. Is a good way to get in front of their face to see the work.
Yeah. Yep.
Because we're hoping that the work sells itself. That's where
Yep.
we're hoping it focuses. So that's why I was thinking about brochures. Slightly larger. It's more of an investment than a CD, and email is no investment at all financially,
That's
but also
true.
but that investment shows in that you're serious about what you're doing and willing
Yep.
to invest in your career.
That's really
So
true.
so that's where my premise for a brochure comes from. But as
Ooh.
far as showing a lot, like wherever an artist is located, um, you just build a good group of friends, and get involved in the community, help support the community. I've been involved for over 15 years as an advocate in the community. So
Yeah, that's
so you're
true.
connected to all the right people
Yep.
because of just building these friendships. I mean, and come to it with generosity and how you can help and support people, not with the intent of how they're going to support you, but eventually that does happen. It just comes back
Yeah.
to
Yep.
you. And so that's why it's made it, I'm able to have the shows I'm able to have where I live is because of all the people I know, and
Yeah. Yeah,
and
that's true.
I'm a person. I have social anxiety, but and I was super shy as a kid, but you just got to push against it and push beyond it to build these relationships. And one thing about being in the art world, it's such. I mean, as you and I experienced in Vermont, it's such a rich world to be in. So many
I
amazing
know.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so rewarding and fulfilling. So,
So true. And yeah, I get like social anxiety too. And I just like to be kind of like I spend a lot of time alone in the studio and stuff. So
mhm,
it's not always like the easiest to be social.
no,
And I get kind of drained too. I feel like I only have so much energy. But when I was in Vermont, like, yeah, I just really loved. I mean, the thing about a lot of artists is a lot of us are like that. So it was
yeah,
like such a relief to have like so many people around that I could just genuinely be myself with, and they would understand if I come and go because I'm like, oh, now my energy's dropping, I'm gonna
yeah,
go. And and I saw other people even more isolated than me, and so it was
yeah.
great. Yeah.
But it was all okay, and I think
Yeah.
in any community you live in, you can build that type of uh, pack of people. Find your pack of
Yeah,
that type of thing in
it's
varying
really true.
degrees, but you have to meet people and get to know them before you really know how it's going to work.
Yeah, that's true. That's the just getting out there part. But yeah, I'm so glad that I have like a community of people that is really supportive too. Like, um, I love that so much. Just yeah, like actually totally supportive. I think that there can be this perception that like a lot of artists could be competitive or whatever, and I'm
Hmm.
sure that like exists, but I don't really have that. I just have a lot of like, yeah, just genuinely supportive, building together kind of people. And it sounds like you do too. And I love
Yeah,
that. Yeah,
it's very fortunate, and it really is what you reflect. It's what you're trying to
that's true.
give, and that's the kind of people that gravitate towards you. Is so if you're in it for
Hmm.
yourself and you're just trying to make money or get these shows and whatever, people know. It
For sure.
and even if you get that success, there's a sacrifice you make in relationships by doing that. So
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you can almost feel the energy right away when somebody's
yeah,
really just like in it for themselves.
yep,
Kind of repellent.
yes,
But going back to the brochures too.
yes. Sorry, go
So
ahead.
let's take a really close look at exactly how you format these things. So, what size paper are you printing these brochures on? Everything, because I
um,
remember you have lots of good ideas about this.
I'm thinking like 8 by 6 or bigger. You don't want them too big.
So, would it
And
be like ledger paper folded into three or legal folded three ways?
y-
Do you know what I mean?
uh,
Like,
yeah, let me. Yeah, I think a little bit bigger than legal. Okay,
yeah,
and
so
then
probably the
and then
ledger.
yeah, and then a trifold. And so you want to have your most. your strongest piece of work on the front, right?
Yes.
And the way I have mine is I have what I think is my strongest piece, and it opens up, and then the next page is an essay that I've had written about my work.
Yeah, I want to talk about that. That's so
Yeah.
cool. So, how did you find, because was it a an art critic or something like that who had previously written about your work? How
Yeah,
did you find this person? Yeah.
the last brochure I did, I had an art critic write it, and he's an amazing writer and very kind to do it
Wow.
for me. I met him through, he lives in Florida, but he was visiting where I live in Salt Lake. And I met him because he was doing a tour with a friend of mine, and she brought him to the gallery. And so we met that way. And I found out you got to make sure they like your work. And he liked
Yeah.
my work, and then
Yeah.
he was willing to write that for me. And it's not free, but it's worth it to have a professional, because you're professional visually, have a
Totally.
professional write your work for you, or
That would
write the
be
essay for you.
amazing. And how long is it? Like a,
Um,
yeah.
I would say like 400 words, maybe
So does it take
five.
up sort of the full
Yeah.
one, the next one, like the of the three sort of
Yeah.
sections,
So yeah,
that
it's the
vertical
second flap.
section?
And then
Nice.
so you have the first flap and then the second one, and you open that up so it's full. And then I have one really large image that covers half the size, like maybe my second best piece. And
Yep.
then several smaller pieces on the side as an example.
Oh,
And then a cover
nice.
letter in there that's catered to the specific gallery. And I don't even I just my whole intent is just to share my work with them, just to put it in front of them. And that's
Yeah,
where it starts. If they just love the work, they're gonna contact you and try and arrange something. But
totally.
no pressure, no, like, just here's my work. I love what you're doing. I love these artists that you are showing. And maybe even thank them for showing those artists, because maybe they're like, for me, sometimes artists are more challenging uh,
Yeah.
sell, and they're still representing them. I think that's really cool. So just,
Mm,
you know, everyone loves to hear that they're doing a good job, right? So,
yeah.
so, and just that, so the cover letter like that, and then, link to your website and your Instagram or whatever. Just very simple. If they want to know what your CV is, and go to your website. You don't have to really include that. Just make sure
Yeah.
your website's really up to date and it's done
Yeah.
well. Um, and that's how I go. And then the back, I leave for the address and everything. And one thing that in sending them out initially, I sent them out without an envelope. So they got really banged up.
Mm.
So my recommendation is send them in a clear envelope so you
I
can
thought
still
that
see
was
the image.
brilliant.
Yeah.
A clear
So,
envelope. So sorry, I kind of interrupted you so that yeah,
oh,
they can see the image. They're forced to see
yeah.
her.
Yeah. So they're forced to they see the image still, but it's protected. So, like, it's not torn in half by
Yeah.
the post office or whatever. The image is
That's
smeared.
smart. And where do you get these clear envelopes?
Um, I haven't gotten them yet, but I think you can get them. You may have to special order them
Yeah,
online,
yeah,
but
yeah.
I've seen them, because if you think about like wedding invitations, they often have them.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
so it's just a matter of finding them.
Whoa. And would the cover letter be a separate piece of paper?
Yeah. So
Yep.
so that the
Stuck
brochure is
inside.
yeah, the brochure is universal. You can send it to everyone, but
Totally.
you don't want to send the same cover letter to everyone.
No, it needs to be tweaked a little bit. Do you
Yeah,
tweak them like, I like what you're doing with your gallery,
yeah,
such as this, like some more
yeah,
specific detail, some little tidbit about what they're doing?
yeah, and
Yeah.
or love this last show. Or one good thing to try to do if you can is to visit. Travel as much as you can to visit if you're trying to get something outside of your area.
Yep.
So you've actually been to that gallery if possible. Or something I like to do is you go to the fairs, um, in LA or Miami or New York, and
Yep.
a lot of galleries are there from all over the world. And so you're like, oh, I saw your work at, Frieze last year and I loved it, and blah, blah, blah. So they kind
Mm,
of, as many ways you can connect with them as possible, would be
yeah.
helpful.
Yeah, that's really smart. I did like your idea too about having the wording be sort of around, I just kind of want to introduce you to my work or whatever,
Yeah,
not necessarily like I'm totally specifically dying to be in your gallery.
yeah, yeah. It's just sharing it and hoping for the best.
Yeah. No, I think that does just keep it more of an open conversation. It doesn't put so much pressure on them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
one other thing in regards to like showing,
Yep.
I talked about having friends or whatever, but also just applying a lot, you
Oh,
know,
true.
and not being worried about rejection.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
Like when I was really adamant about my career years ago, I collected, and this is before people would send you hard copy rejection letters, so I just kept them all. And so I was like, I'm going to have the biggest pile of rejection letters ever. So I'd send them like to the MoMA and all this stuff. So I get these rejection letters from these prestigious places.
Oh,
Turned it into a
amazing.
positive. Yeah.
Ha! I love that. For me, I would make a list of all the places that I sent the thing to, and I would have a little check box beside it, and I would check
Uh,
it as soon as it got sent. And that would be the big success, you know? And then I would
yeah.
check off when it got rejected too or whatever. But that was totally fine. It was just a check mark. Like it
Yeah.
meant I heard back from them. That's actually a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because often they don't respond, do they? And it's
Yeah.
about just trying to turn everything into a positive to give you that energy to keep going and doing what you need to do.
Totally. Actually, and
Yeah.
Ron on my last podcast, Ron Lambert, who
Yeah.
you also know, he
Yes.
said that he would submit to so many things that by the time he got the rejection, he would forget that he ever submitted.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love
Yeah. That's a
that.
great idea.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I totally do that too. Actually, I had forgotten that I'd submitted into the Vermont Studio Center. So I luckily opened their email and I was like, wait, what's this? I've got accepted. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's just keep going. Don't let anything pull you down because there's enough. There's too
Yeah.
much negative energy without you generating it yourself.
Yeah, no, that's true. Um, I'm just trying to think. So I know I sometimes like send cards with my images too when I've first gone into the gallery and kind of made any kind of communication with them, even before I ever send like a portfolio. I would sort of immediately after talking to them in the gallery, send them a card which would have an image on my work and just say like what a pleasure it was to meet them at their gallery. And I know one of my galleries I did end up getting to show with them, and it was because of the card. I know it was. And he said, like, almost nobody ever sends cards. People, we should all be doing it all the time, but it's not actually that common, so it still stands out. Did you get many cards sent to you when you owned the gallery?
Um, well, the artists here aren't very proactive, so I got occasional thank you cards like what you're talking about, but I think that's a great idea. I mean, you're just adding another possible connection to the relationship, and
Yeah.
you know, and after I've had a good lunch or conversation with a friend, that's what I do. I text them or whatever. So it's not abnormal to do that. I think it's a great idea. I think I took that
Yeah.
from you.
I need to start doing it again. It was actually really great. I was really proactive, like when I was starting out or something, and
Yeah.
that one really worked well. Yeah. I think it just like warms the waters for your portfolio. Is that even the saying? I don't know if it is, probably not, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
maybe it is. And then your portfolio comes in and they're like, "Oh, I remember this person and I have a good feeling about them." Yeah.
Yeah. It's a nice thing to do. And didn't you say that once you sent someone flowers?
I did actually. I
Uh,
did. I sent someone flowers after it was actually a case. I'm trying to remember now. I actually had sent him images of my work with the intention, just as you had said, that I really just wanted to introduce him to my work. And I kind of wanted to get some feedback too. And
yeah.
I think he had a little bit of a consultation with me. And he was actually, I was just starting out and his gallery was like extremely good. So it was sort of out of my league. Um, and so after the consultation, I sent him flowers and he later
Hmm.
told me that like nobody has ever done that for him. And he just really like appreciated it. And actually I've been really excited a couple times later in my career. I never did show with him. I think his gallery changed hands and things change and stuff.
Hmm.
But he is an art collector himself too, and he's like bought a painting of mine since. And I don't, we've kept a relationship, like so
Yeah,
it
yeah.
establishes that. Yeah.
And I think as human beings, we tend to if we know the artist and we like them, we tend to like their work more. Um, so it's
Yeah,
very helpful to be a nice person and
that's
thoughtful, like the
true.
things that you've done.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's true.
I mean, I've seen our artists work where I was sort of like, oh, that's all right, but then I meet the artist and get to know them, and then I like their work more.
Yep,
And in one case at least, I end up showing their work later because
totally.
so.
Yeah. No, I think like the whole the big takeaway that I'm kind of getting is just about like trying to have all of your interactions have more of a flavor of like obviously being nice and supportive and not
Hmm.
trying to take, but more, you know, give and like just collaborate, or more, I don't know, just being sort of in it together or whatever, but not having
Yeah,
this like, I need something from you kind of flavor. And same with when you're
yeah,
connecting to other artists. Just I think that's like it's like sort of so important to always have that in mind, like when we're connecting with
yeah.
people
I
in
agree.
galleries. And yeah, glad you like
Yeah,
mentioned that.
because
Yeah,
if the gallerist ends up working with you, I mean, you have a partnership, and it's like a friendship. You don't want to, manipulate the friendship, to,
totally.
go anywhere. So,
Yeah, totally. And actually, like, I yeah, I feel like that's another place where as artists and as good gallery owners too, you get the opportunity to kind of set the relationship up right away in such a way that it's clear that like you're in it together, you're kind of
mhm.
collaborating on things, it's friendly, it's you both have the same goals in mind. And um yeah, and also just keeping emails short and things like that, I've noticed can be
Yeah,
very important when you're dealing with gallerists because they're very busy. So you don't want to be
yeah,
writing lengthy emails or anything like that. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, this has been such a good conversation. I'm like so excited to try out some of these things. And I just think there's like so much good information in this. So thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for joining me, John.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Aw, yeah. And where can people find out more about your work?
So it's www.johnsproul.com, JohnSproul.
Excellent. I'll definitely include a link to your website in the description of this
Great. Thank you.
podcast. And yeah, it's just so good to talk to you again. And thank you
You
so
too.
much, John.
Thank you. Talk to
Talk
you
to you
soon.
soon.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Hey.
I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Down to Art. And if you're interested in any of my classes or seeing my paintings, you can check out my work at christygordon.com or look at the online classes I have at christygordoncourses.com. If you've never taken any of my classes, I would suggest you start with the self portrait class. So thank you for joining us today.